Hello and welcome to this exclusive interview for ET Edge Insights. Today we have with us Mr. Varun Chopra, who's the Executive Chairman at Gear. Mr. Chopra, welcome to ET Edge Insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, Mr. Chopra, we are living in a world where the context of decarbonization is a very strong one. Given it's a very strong one, how do you foresee the future of intralogistics, supply chains evolving in India over the next 10 years?
Sure. So I think if you just take a step back, when you look at India's net zero target, it's 2070. Now, it's just important to understand what net zero means. When we say net zero, it actually comprises of scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions. Scope 1 is from an owned asset like a vehicle or a forklift. Scope 2 is your source of power. And scope 3 is your rented asset or your value chain. And when we talk about net zero, we mean zero emissions from all of these scopes. And hence, while one may think that the net zero target is 45 years hence in 2070, the fact is that we should have started yesterday. Now, within this context, it's really important to keep in mind that 60% of all carbon emissions come in from the supply chain.
Right.
And that is where supply chain, logistics, and intralogistics would play a critical role in the decarbonization efforts of organizations in India, not just in the next 10 years, but probably beyond that as well. If I were to very briefly define intralogistics, intralogistics, as the word suggests, is logistics intra a factory or a warehouse. The most common equipment within intralogistics is known as a forklift, which we all probably understand. But there are different types of such equipments. And the name for these equipments, they fall under a name called MHE, Material Handling Equipment.
Okay.
So MHE is an integral part of intralogistics. And when we look at the net zero target of India 2070, my submission is that one can start immediately decarbonizing their supply chain by deploying zero emission MHEs within their intralogistics setup. And this is where we can really start the journey. Now, within forklifts, i.e. intralogistics, you can migrate or transition from a diesel or a lead acid to a lithium-ion powered one. You could do that via a rental model, so you can lease out assets, and that's what we at Gear do. We lease out and we also sell assets, which is on capex. So you have an opex model, i.e. lease, as well as you have a capex model where there is an outright sale. The beauty of these assets, these lithium-ion powered MHEs, is that they're not only net zero, but most importantly, they help in saving your operating cost.
Okay.
And this to me is the most fundamental change or the fundamental aspect that will drive this huge transition towards zero emission MHEs. Because to be very honest with you, we all run organizations and businesses. Organizations would scale up a particular innovation when it delivers positive unit economics. If the unit economics don't work, then the innovation doesn't really scale up. So the net zero is an important benefit when coupled with positive unit economics is where really a magic happens and there's a significant transition that starts towards zero emission MHEs.
Right. Interesting. Now, what I'd like to know is, in your experience so far, what have been the most impactful technologies or perhaps even strategies that have been successful in reducing the carbon emissions?
Perfect. So I think when you look at, I'll probably speak a bit more detail on this from the first point. The battery technologies, right? And this is in our industry, it's called the BMS, the battery management system. So the BMS today is lithium-ion powered, which is zero emission. There is already work happening on sodium-ion. In fact, there's a commercial sodium-ion battery which is already under development. And then there is hydrogen fuel cells. The beauty about sodium-ion, sodium as we all know is salt. So it democratizes the entire supply chain of the raw material for the battery. It lowers cost of the battery and gives a faster charge. So sodium ion would be the next big game changer from a technological point of view with respect to driving zero emission MHEs. Hydrogen fuel cells is a little further away because the unit economics are still not very positive. It's basically a lot more expensive to run it via hydrogen fuel cells. So my sense is that hydrogen fuel cells is sometime further away, but the combination of lithium ion and sodium ion is probably going to drive this technologically on the decarbonization front for the next 10, 15, 20 years is what my submission is.
Right, right. What are the key barriers that you faced in this effort so far?
Sure, I think that's a great question. And I think with any new innovation, any technology, I think the first challenge or a barrier that anyone faces is the resistance to change, right? So I think mindset is probably the first aspect that we have to deal with, because please bear in mind that whenever you're selling a new technology or an innovation, it's like a concept selling. So you have to really understand what exactly the barriers from a customer point of view. One of them that I mentioned is mindset. The second is the perception that if I have to be sustainable, I will have to be spending a lot more. And this is where I would like to really sort of demystify this a bit and clarify that for the benefit of the people at large, and also for the benefit of various supply chain experts, is you've got to look at a lithium ion forklift or an MHE not just from an acquisition cost point of view, but from a TCO point of view, which is the total cost of ownership.
Right.
Because when you look at it from a TCO point of view, you're looking at the lifetime of the asset. So let us say a lithium ion forklift, a 3-ton, approximately may cost about 20 to 30% more than a lead acid asset, and about 50% more than a diesel asset. But your cost savings right from day one keep on multiplying, and I'll very briefly share with you how. When you look at a diesel asset, a 3-ton diesel forklift consumes about 2.5 liters of diesel per hour, which is about 250 rupees per hour. Single shift operation 8 hours is 2,000 rupees. 3-shift operation 6,000 rupees. 6,000 into 30 days is 1.8 lakh rupees of just diesel per month. If we move to a hiring of a lithium ion asset, a 3-ton lithium ion asset, I can provide one as Gear, and we are market leaders in the space. We could be able to provide a 3-ton lithium ion asset at a rent of around about 2.2 to 2.3 lakhs a month, which when you compare with just the diesel cost that is saving of 1.8 lakhs, immediately starts making economic sense. More importantly, from a lead acid battery point of view, please bear in mind that a lead acid battery consumes 30% more power versus a lithium ion asset, and that is where the cost of charging your battery is significantly higher. Second is a lithium ion battery works in opportunity charging.
Okay.
You can charge it whenever the forklift operator is taking a break or goes for lunch. A lead acid battery works on cycles, so you have to charge it every 8 hours. Third is it's a maintenance free battery. A lithium ion battery doesn't need any DM water, etc. And in fact it can be used for continuous 3-shift operation, depending that it gets those if there is opportunity charging which is done in the asset. So coming back to maybe the essence of your question, from a technology point of view, it's these new batteries with respect to sodium ion, etc., which are developing. But most importantly, from a barriers point of view, it's mindset. It's about the perception that being sustainable is more expensive. And I can emphatically state that in the case of Intralogistics and MHE, it is not expensive. It in fact helps save operating cost.
Right. Interesting. Now, circular economy is another very strong conversation of the last, say, 5 to 10 years. How are you at Gear integrating principles of circular economy, likes of energy efficiency, in your product design?
Right. I think that's a very apt question. You're absolutely right. So when you look at the circular economy, there were earlier the 3 R's, reuse, reduce, and renew, right? If I'm not mistaken. Now those 3 R's have become 9 R's. So because there is so much of focus on being sustainable and reusing whatever parts you can. From a product point of view, like I was just sharing with you, with the advent of lithium ion batteries, it's also very important to keep in mind the recyclability of these batteries. So as per current technology which is available, it is really heartening to note that 90% of rare earth minerals and metals can be recycled from a lithium-ion battery, and going forward one can expect that number only to go up. So you clearly have that aspect of the circular economy which is there in play with respect to lithium-ion batteries. I think from an organization point of view, it's also when you look at, be it your emissions as an organization. So we at Gear also have EcoVadis certification, which is the global certification for sustainability. In fact, it gives me great pride to share with you on behalf of my entire organization and team that Gear is a silver medal EcoVadis winner for the last 2 years successively, and we're looking forward to improve our scores in EcoVadis going forward. So these are the two aspects that I would probably share from a circular economy point of view.
Right. Now, global supply chains have increasingly become more and more climate conscious, right? How can an Indian manufacturer balance the local challenge on one hand and the global sustainability expectation on the other?
I think it's really important that when we're looking at sustainability, I don't think a business should say that, let's do sustainably. I think the right way to look at this is, let's do what is right for business, right? Talking about our own country, right? If you look at India as a country, as a culture, sustainability and reusing things is ingrained in all of us, right?
Sure.
For thousands of years, we've always recycled stuff. I think, on a lighter note, a lot of us, had hand-me-down clothes from our elder brothers, sisters, as the case may be. And I think especially our mothers, probably the most astute recyclers
True.
that are there on the planet, if I may say so, right? So even a plastic packet would not be put to waste. It would be used and used till it probably really tore.
Right.
So I think as a culture, India has sustainability ingrained in all of us, and I think that's a great place to start. Now, when you look at, let's take the example of the CBAM mechanism, which is in Europe. So basically, if you start exporting steel, which does not meet a certain carbon emission standard, Europe will levy a certain tariff on that steel, thereby rendering steel uncompetitive for Indian manufacturers.
Right.
So the point is, it's not a matter of if I should do this or when I should do this. The point is you have to start now, because going forward, this is going to be the norm. Let me also please share with you that our own regulatory body, SEBI, as part of the BRSR, they've launched a revised BRSR format and certain rules and regulations in March of 2025, which actually suggest for top 500 companies by market capitalization to disclose their value chain emissions, scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3. Now this is a huge step. So you've got regulators now playing an important role. And lastly, if I may add, the carbon credit mechanism, which was announced in 2024, is already taking shape. In fact, as of last week, there was a certain notification which came out that industries in more carbon emitting organizations in more carbon emitting industries such as steel, cement, iron, they're mandated to reduce their carbon emissions.
Right.
And when you combine this regulatory aspect with the point that you made about how would India drive this, for the globe as a whole, and the third aspect of being positive unit economics, it creates a very fertile mix for India to drive sustainability and be a beacon for the world with respect to driving towards net zero, driving towards ESG, and driving towards our decarbonization goals.
Right. You mentioned the regulatory aspect that's kicked in. Given that in India, we have unique elements when it comes to the regulatory aspect, there's the environment at play.
Right.
How do you think an Indian manufacturer or an industry scales?
Right.
What key considerations will help them in scaling at pace?
Absolutely. See, I think regulations can only do so much, right? At the end of the day, it's all about how much money am I saving or how much is my productivity going up. And this, I think, is a very unique situation where the unit economics of using these zero emission material handling equipments such as forklifts and reach trucks, the operating cost is actually lower.
Right.
So what happens is once you're able to demonstrate this to any manufacturer in India, you're able to get a positive buy-in to invest in such an asset, which is zero emission. It could be on rental or it could be on sale. But the key part is the unit economics. So given that your operating cost is reduced by deploying these zero emission MHEs, is where you're seeing significant adoption. Let me share with you a very small example. We as Gear, we had zero emission MHEs less than 3.5 years back. And today we are nearly 1,500. So we've gone from zero to approximately 1,500 in less than 3.5 years, which is today about 50% of my installed base.
Right.
The only way we've been able to do this is by demonstrating to our customers that zero emission MHEs are not only good for the environment, they have zero emission, they also help with operating cost. And that's why we've seen a significant acceleration. But I believe that the best is yet to come. We've just started on this journey as a nation.
Really interesting insights, Mr. Chopra. Thank you so much for taking out the time for this. And it's been a great pleasure.
Pleasure, absolutely. Thanks again.